Welcome to the GSMC Business News Podcast, the show dedicated to keeping you up to date on all things concerning business, technology, and the stock market. Get a head start on the day as we keep you updated on the latest goings-on Wall Street, money, jobs, and technology. If you're looking for a podcast to keep you informed and ahead of the game in business, the GSMC Business News Podcast has you covered.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Business News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Paula DuPont, and we're talking about recent business news and what it means to us. Depending on where you live, you may be like me and going into your fourth week of lockdown due to the coronavirus. You know by now firsthand that it's changed life as we know it, and has had a profound effect on just about every area of our lives, and of course, including the business world. So we're going to talk about that today, and believe it or not, there are still some positive news stories that are coming out and that we're going to talk about. So today, specifically, we're going to talk about the coronavirus, of course, and its impact on business. We'll talk a little more about Zoom video conferencing and navigating the tool, even amid some recent controversy that's been going on. And finally, we'll talk about some of the positive news, such as refunds that are going to be given out by insurance companies, and even some colleges and universities are doing that and considering doing that. So lots to talk about today. Please stay tuned. Before we start talking about the effect of the coronavirus on business today, I think it's important first that we kind of give a quick status update of where we are with the coronavirus in the United States. Unfortunately, the numbers are not good. There doesn't seem to be an indication that we are at a flatter part of the curve. And that's frankly wasn't expected necessarily right now. In fact, we are bracing for what's considered by some of the health experts to be probably one of the toughest weeks we've hit yet. In fact, over the weekend, U.S. Surgeon General Jerome Adams said that it's going to be the hardest moment for many Americans in their entire lives. He also likened this moment in time as being our version of Pearl Harbor, our Pearl Harbor moment, which is a little daunting to think about. Most of us probably listening weren't alive during the Pearl Harbor attack, but you likely know what that meant and the profound impact that had on this country, and the role we had in World War II, and then in even the aftermath and the impact of that. Because I guess one of the things that brings it so close is the fact that it's an attack here at home. And we are certainly feeling that. It does feel very similar to an attack on our country, where we are all experiencing the same thing and the same fear. And basically, no one is safe, geographically speaking or in any other way. We know that that's the case. So where we are right now in the U.S., we have over 350,000 confirmed cases of the coronavirus. We have hit an unfortunate milestone in that over 10,000 people have died so far because of it. We are still not number one in that regard, although we are we do have the most cases of any other country in the world in terms of confirmed cases. In terms of deaths, Italy has the highest with over 16,000. deaths, Spain over 13,000, and then there's the United States after that. In terms of in our country, we have 9 states that have over 10,000 cases, confirmed corona cases. And that in ranking order is New York with over 130,000 confirmed cases, New Jersey, Michigan, California, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Illinois. And just to give you an idea, so Illinois has a little over 11,000 confirmed cases. So, and actually by the time you're hearing this, unfortunately, I'm sure the numbers will be greater. Unfortunately, there's one other thing that does contribute to the White House and other experts saying that we're in for a tough week, and that is the fact that a new model that was shared with the White House recently showed that there could be close to 100,000 corona deaths in the United States. So hopefully they're wrong, and hopefully there will be better models coming out based on the new behaviors that we're all practicing. And that's about all we can do right now, is continue to stay home and follow the precautions that have been very well communicated, it seems to me, to everyone. Wall Street started the week with a rally showing some confidence from investors, perhaps because of the outbreak curbing in some countries, in some harder hit countries. The Dow closed on Monday at over 7%, as did S&P and the NASDAQ. But as we know, each day is different, and hopefully we'll continue that trend. Something else I saw today I thought was interesting. It was an article that I saw about the possibility of Corona bonds being issued. Corona bonds would be like war bonds, where you're using that to raise money to help fund the effort. And it's interesting because of, we've seen a lot of similarities, of course, with being in an actual war. And so it seems like this could be, possibly a good tool to offer. And in discussions about it, there's different ideas about the length of the bond, but it would seem that it may be something like a 30-year bond. So it's something that has been discussed with the president and Steve Mnuchin, and we'll see where that goes. In other news, BMW reported that it was going to continue the suspension of its South Carolina operation until at least April 30th. Meanwhile, Boeing did something similar, and they are also continuing to have closed its Seattle operation until further notice. On a more positive note, some large retailers are seeing a real boon lately because of selling essential products and the high demand. Walmart, being the nation's largest retailer, reported having a 20% jump in sales in the past month. They have 4,700 stores, which reported seeing 20% in sales in the past 4 weeks. Walmart.com showed 30% increase in sales. Likewise, Target also reported having a 20% increase in sales over the past month. So 2 very large retailers trying to meet demand and evidently doing pretty well in the process. However, as this continues to move on in the pandemic, and the demand continues to increase, and the effects down the supply chain could have a bearing on sales going forward, but hopefully they'll find a way around that. Now, another large retailer, or online retailer, Amazon, of course, they've announced some great news in that they want to add 100,000 workers to their organization. Currently, they're having some issues, most are aware, with employees wanting more pay and better sick leave. Some who've complained about the conditions and have alleged that that there could be issues within the warehouse facility. So they are still working to meet demand. I don't have any numbers on their results recently, but I do know that they have announced that they're going to postpone their Prime Day, which is one of their big marketing events that they have for their Prime customers, Prime members. They have that every year where they offer a lot of great sales and deals. And instead of having it in July, they're going to move it to August, because at that point they feel, with a lot of the items that didn't get bought, and they believe there's about $100 million worth of excess devices that they can sell, that they'll be able to do that at that time. I guess typically they choose July so they can try to increase sales during the summertime, and now that's been shifted a little bit. So when we come back, we're going to talk about Zoom. By now you've probably heard of it, maybe you've used it, and you may have even heard about a little controversy about it recently. So we're going to talk about that when we come back in a moment.
Are you looking for a podcast that gives you all of the latest news from the world of finance? Then check out the GSMC Financial News Podcast. We'll delve into the ups and downs of the stock market, changes in the economy, and news from the world of real estate and technology. From breaking news on the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, or the overseas market, to updates on the bond market, if there's money to be made, we'll cover it on the GSMC Financial News Podcast.
Hi, and we're back. So thanks for coming back. I promise we're not going to do that heavy stuff anymore, not in this segment. In this segment, I want to talk about Zoom. And if you're not familiar with what Zoom is, let me just give you a little bit of background. First of all, it's an app. It can be used on a computer. You can download it on your computer. But it's an app that was designed to provide video conferencing, live video conferencing. So you can have a host of the meeting sets up a call, and you can have participants join in through their app for free using video. There's also an option where you can just do audio conferencing, but largely it's a video tool. And it's something that if you hadn't heard of it before, you might have heard a little rumblings about it, but it hasn't been around that long. In fact, Zoom only went public last year, I think around this time in 2019. And at that, it still hadn't taken off like it apparently has in the past month and a half. In fact, last year at the end of 2019, they reported having 10 million daily meeting participants. And that is, that includes both paid and free, because there are two versions of it. Anybody can download it for free and use it for free. There's some limitations with that, but for the most part, pretty much what you need to do, you can do for free. But there is a paid version as well. So as I said, there was 10 million at the end of 2019 with its first year. Now, currently, there are 200 million daily participants on Zoom. So chances are you are using Zoom, or someone you know is. And it's just interesting, the creative ways and all the different ways that people are using it, largely driven by the pandemic and having to isolate and not be able to see people in person. So the kinds of things that you can use it for, or people have used it for, is anything from exercise, yoga, and Zumba classes that they would do live together. People are having virtual cocktail parties. People are using it for school. Teachers are using it to give lessons. There's story hours for kids where someone's reading a book. They are Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and other fellowships that are getting together through Zoom. One of the things that I thought was particularly interesting, and I imagine this is probably happening more than we know, but a good friend of mine's mother became infected with the coronavirus. And naturally, when she got to the point where she had to go to the hospital and was having difficulty breathing, she couldn't have family visit. Not even her daughter, who was a doctor and had been a doctor at that particular hospital. But fortunately, through the kindness of one of the nurses working on that floor, she used her own phone and enabled the family to do a Zoom conference with their mother and grandmother and be able to talk to her. And this was shortly before she passed, actually, but while she was still able to engage in the conversation and see everybody. And from what I gather, it was quite impactful for everybody, including the nurse who gave her time to sit and do that when otherwise the woman would have been totally isolated and her family wouldn't have had the chance to connect with her. So it's been used in many, many positive ways. And, some have seen that since it has become so popular, it has caught the eye of many investors, thinking this is a pretty safe bet. And interestingly, a lot of investors have gone out and have bought up stocks in Zoom and increasing its stock price tenfold since the first of the year. The problem is the one that's increased tenfold are shares of Zoom Technologies, which would sound like it's the same video conferencing company, but it's not. The one that is the one everyone's using is Zoom Video Communications. So the other company apparently is, they're the ones who, they made modems, I believe, and I'm not even sure that they're still doing that. Apparently they haven't reported anything publicly since 2015, but, they enjoyed quite a little boost to their stock. But nonetheless, it looks like Zoom is going to continue to be here to stay. The CEO of Zoom, who had worked at another video conferencing company before he went to Zoom, he had a vision of wanting to create a frictionless user experience. And that means something that would be really easy for any business user to be able to get on and schedule a conference and be able to hold it and have decent quality and usability with it. But the problem is that recently, you may have heard there's been some controversy about it. There's been something called Zoom bombing. And that is where there are hackers who have gotten into private conferences and have put in their own, have put in pornographic pictures or drawings, or have actually gone on the microphone and said, have used expletives or racial slurs and, basically being as disruptful as you could be on a conference call. And some of these conference calls are, church meetings and again, private kinds of things like Alcoholics Anonymous. And it has created a huge issue in trust and confidentiality, which the CEO does not take lightly. Eric Yuan, who is the CEO, has said, I really messed up. We need to get users' trust back. And he's made several statements like that recently, He's not pointing fingers at anyone else. He's not trying to divert and talk about the hackers as much, but really just about how his company intends to fix this. And it already is offering some suggestions and some ways that users and people who plan the meeting and host the meeting, how they can go about setting it up in such a way to minimize the threat of a hacker coming into it. But in the meantime, and I'm going to talk about some of those tips in a moment, but in the meantime, he has said that that his company has actually put on hold some of the efforts and the things that they were looking at to develop new benefits and features of Zoom in order to focus on really shoring up the security and the privacy of settings of the app. And as I said before, this is something that was very important to him when he started the company, was to be able to have something that was easy to use and that also would gain wide acceptance because it would be safe and private. So we're going to talk just for a second about some of those tips because it really is a very easy tool to use. One of the things that is suggested is that if you're hosting the meeting, that means you plan the meeting, you invite the attendees. One of the things that you can do is you can use your own ID number because you are assigned an ID number when you set up an account with Zoom. And when you set up a new meeting, if you ask for a new meeting ID for that meeting, then there will be less likelihood that someone could get into your specific meeting. The other thing is to set it up so that you have a waiting room. It gives you that option right as you're setting up the meeting before you send out the invitation to have the waiting room. The waiting room means that as people join the call, they go into this virtual waiting room and you as the host can decide to invite them or let them into the meeting or not. So again, if you recognize the others in it, then you should probably avoid having unwelcome visitors onto your call. Another feature that you can select is the option to share the screen. And if only the host does that, then there's no less likelihood that someone could come in and take over the screen and be able to put up their own pictures and disrupt the meeting. So those are just some of the things that that you can do in setting up your meeting. And actually, I think some of that guidance is on the Zoom website. So I would encourage everybody to give it a try sometime because you never know if you might have to use it. So at least getting it set up, you get a little familiarity with it and you'll be ready. And also to read up on some of the things that you can do to protect the integrity of your meeting and keeping it private, and explore all those creative ways that you can use the tool. Because I'm just surprised every day with some of the things that people come up with. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the other positive things happening out there in spite of these dark times.
Do you work in the world of marketing and advertising? Are you a media buyer or the owner of an agency? Have you been looking for a podcast to help stay on top of all the goings on of those worlds? The GSMC Marketing News Podcast is dedicated to keeping you up to date on all things concerning marketing and advertising. Get the latest marketing news from what major businesses have planned for the coming year to the newest trends in advertising, from podcasts, digital and streaming to the old standbys of radio, television, and billboards. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast has you covered, whether you're a marketing agent or a business trying to expand your brand.
Hi, we're back. And once again, I'm your host, Paula DuPont. You're listening to the Business Podcast. And earlier we talked about the coronavirus outbreak and some of the grim statistics about that. And also some good and bad news with the business community and the economy. Little bit of a positive point about the stock market and how we started off the week. Then we talked about Zoom, the popular app that has recently been a victim of hackers who are doing Zoom bombing. And then again, we talked about some ideas and how you could get around that, or at least avoid being victimized by that in any upcoming meetings you might have or you host. So now I'd like to turn our attention to talking about a couple of positive things. It might not seem like there's a whole lot of positive to say in terms of business news, but there are. I mean, we have been hearing all along of companies that are hiring despite other companies who are laying off. As I mentioned earlier, Amazon is looking to hire 100,000. There are a number of people, General Motors, who's now working with a ventilator company to mass produce more ventilators at one of its plants, has hired 1,000 new workers to do that. And there's just so many. CVS, a lot of the pharmacy chains and other brands have been looking to hire more people. So we've been hearing some of those stories. One of the things I noticed is that there was an item I had seen just recently about how there are a couple of car insurance companies, Allstate, I think, being the bigger of them, that is going to be issuing refunds to their customers because we are inside all the time. We're not out driving on the roads. So that means there's fewer car crashes. And that's better for the insurance company. So they're going to share some of that with their customers and in the way of refunds that they're sending out. So I thought that was pretty neat because I'm not sure that there was this big outcry for people to do that. And, they can't pin it down to an individual customer and say, well, you didn't have a car accident in the past month. So, we're going to give you this refund. So everyone benefits from that, or at least if you're an Allstate customer, you do. And there was another company that also was doing that, and hopefully more to follow. Also, when you start to think about other businesses, entities that are seeing a change in behavior, or there's an opportunity there for a refund, or at least stopping in charging gym memberships, for instance. I believe there's some gym companies that have suspended their monthly membership fees because of this, because people aren't allowed to use them, or at least on a regional basis when things have been shut down and you weren't able to go to gyms. Not everywhere in the country was that prohibited, or is that prohibited. So in places that have seen gym attendance as something that they can't do now, they're at least having some relief in terms of the membership fee. And then colleges and universities who sent students home, maybe a month ago or so, and with that had to pack up and bring everything home. And so even though students are taking their classes online and doing them virtually, they aren't taking advantage of the room and board that they were paying for. And so a lot of universities are looking at refunds to give to students who had to leave the campus. So there was a recent article that I saw that listed a number of universities that were doing that would be either prorating how much they're giving as a refund for housing and food plans, dining plans. It's not a complete list, but among those mentioned were Columbia University, Rutgers University of Chicago, James Madison University, MIT, and there's a number of others. But hopefully, if you're a college student, that your university is doing something like that. So, along with that other check in the mail that we're all expecting to get from the federal government through the stimulus package, there's another good piece of mail to look forward to. Another thing we're going to look forward to is going back to the movies, if you're like me especially. And so there are some great movies that we've been waiting for, and several of them that were expected to come out this year or in the next couple of months have been postponed. That's the bad news. The good news is that they will come out one day, and we'll be back in the theaters with our popcorn and enjoying the big screen, and even annoying people sitting around us, crunching on their popcorn, talking through the movie. Well, maybe we won't enjoy that, but nonetheless, we might be a little more tolerant in the coming months when we do get to just finally get out there. But there was an item I saw today about some of the movies and what when they have been postponed to show or to be released. Mulan, which there's been a lot of advertising about, the live action version of the animated Disney movie Mulan. That was supposed to come out this summer, and actually it was supposed to come out this month, and it is now going to come out this summer. So that's good news. That's something we can look forward to. Also coming out this summer, Wonder Woman 1984. Quiet Place Part 2 will come out in September. Black Widow will come out in November. We've got to wait till the fall for that. No Time to Die will be November 25th. Fast and Furious 9, I can't believe it's Fast and Furious 9 already, will come out next year around this time. And Minions: The Rise of Gru will be next summer in 2021. Now, in the meantime, while you're looking for other entertainment, you've already watched Tiger King and just about every other popular streaming show on Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Disney. Although it would seem quite impossible to see all of them, I still think we have time left that we can get a lot of these shows in. There is a new app, new business that was just launched this week, April 6th. It became live, and that is Quibi. It is short for Quick Bites of Video Entertainment. It's QUIBI. And this is a mobile service that was founded by Jeffrey Katzenberg, who you know was the one of the founders of DreamWorks Animation. And he partnered with Meg Whitman, who was previously the CEO of eBay and Hewlett-Packard Enterprises. And they teamed up to create this programming service that provides original programs in no more than 10-minute segments. And their vision for this initially, which you can see now maybe this might be not the best timing, is that they saw this as a way for commuters and people that are busy and on the go who would otherwise want to be able to watch entertainment but can't watch a TV show or a movie or something, but could see something that's quick. You know, you could see yourself standing in a long line or, you know, waiting for an order to pick up at a deli and watching one of these programs. In fact, I think that was one of the examples that they used in a commercial. So, as I said, this just launched. It's now available. It's a subscription service, but like many, it does have a free trial period. And it features a lot of big names in its programming. And as I said, it's original programming. One of the shows is Chrissy's Court, where Chrissy Teigen is the judge in a small claims court. And there's also Shape of Pasta, which is a food and travel show. and a show featuring Liam Hemsworth, which is Most Dangerous Game. And there's a whole bunch of others. So it's something to think about, a new thing to check out. And, who knows? I mean, maybe you need something that you can just focus on for a short period of time rather than get invested in a long series or movie. So we will see how that takes off. I know it's been highly anticipated, and back when there actually was still the Consumer Electronics Show, they had, I guess, previewed it and talked about it there. So there's been some buzz about it. So now that it's here, we'll see how it does. Well, I guess that's it for today. Thank you for joining us at the GSMC Business News Podcast. Please make sure you join again and hear the latest in business news and how that impacts you. Thank you, and please, if you have any comments, please visit our Facebook page or Twitter and let us know what you think. Take care now.
You've been listening to the GSMC Business News Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type GSMC into your favorite podcast app to find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news. Please subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast.